Hi everyone, welcome along to the Stage by Stage show live with me, Trevor Agnew. It's been a little while from we did one of these, and it was a great idea from Tuttle Porsche to try and do something with them. And Tuttle Porsche is a family business, over 35 years experience in building bespoke Porsche road cars and also preparing cars for motorsport, of course. And the home, I would say, of the best classic rally cars. Their cars have been, they've won everything from London to Sydney to famous East African Safari Classic, the Classic Rally. I think they've won it four times to date, and of course, most recently, the Roger Albert Clark Rally with our good buddy Ryan Champion. So the drivers I've worked with have included such a wealth of talent over the years. So Bjorn Valdegaard, Stig Blomqvist, Michel Mouton, Walter Rohrl, Marco Lane, Carlos Sainz, Francois Delacour, Colin McRae, Jimmy McRae, Tony Pond, Patrick Snyers, and more recently, of course, you've got Ken Block. So Richard Tuttle runs the business. So without further ado, let's get Richard in. Richard, how are you?
Good evening. I'm very, very well. Thank you for having me.
What a fantastic background. What have you got behind you there?
Well, this is a traditional workshop, as you'd expect, a bar made out of the back of a 911, and a fridge just out of
Brilliant.
reach, which has got a few beers in.
That's amazing. Have you cracked one open tonight yet?
I've got some sparkling water.
Ah, right. Okay, that's fine. We'll let you off with that one. How you doing? Are you well?
Yeah, I'm very well actually. Very, very nice to see you. It's been a while, but no, life is as busy as ever, and it's never dull around here. So yeah, all good.
I think that's the key with Tuttle Porsche. It just must be. How do you pick the coolest project? Because everything seems to be cool that you guys get involved with.
Well, it's at this point I wish I could tell you that there's a massive amount of strategy goes on, but actually, I just rock up here at 8 o'clock every morning, and if something grabs my attention, I don't think too hard. I just get on and do it, and I have belief in. I sort of have belief now that if I think it'll be all right, then if I try hard enough, it probably will be.
It's fair to say from the first time I went there, which was many years ago, it's probably a little bit better organized now, I'd imagine.
Yes, yeah. I'm sitting. You may remember the greenhouse, but I'm sitting on the site that the greenhouse was. But yeah, look, it's become quite a big thing. And moving into this building 3 years ago was a moment where I realised what we'd all created. So yeah, there's a fair amount of organisation, thank God.
Just for those people who are wondering what this place looks like, this will give you an idea of the type of things that Tuttle Porsche are involved with. That's just one. Uh, that's another on a different day, I'm sure. And it just probably changes day by day, week by week. I'm sure if you were able to show us over the balcony there, it'd be something very similar, Richard, eh?
Well, yeah, I mean, it is, and that's one of the lovely things. You come in every morning, and there's a different array, different colours, different everything, and of course you become a bit used to it, but it's pretty staggering. And now Sunday night, that's glorious. There's a whole load of them asleep, and I think there's over 70 cars in the workshop, and pleased to say that in about 2 months' time, an exact same building is appearing. So the roof's on, the floor's going in next week, and so we're doubling up. Hence is the hence is the need to keep these Porsches running.
That's incredible. So, again, is it a need for you to continually market, or is it just word of mouth where you get your business and the different ideas and projects?
Well, Laurel will shoot me if she's listening, but we've just recently taken on a full-time social media person, Laura, who's amazing.
Yeah.
So the only thing we do now is a little bit of social media. I'm not on social media myself, so I can't comment. But no, we don't. We actually don't advertise, and we're still reasonably a well-kept secret. So long may that continue.
Yeah, a very successful, well-kept secret. I definitely want to go into the history of the business and also your dad Francis's driving career, and we'll get to that in a second. And we'll go right the way back, because I've no doubt that this will last a little while tonight. If you are watching it live on Sunday night on the 15th of May, please feel free to get on the comments if you're on YouTube or Facebook. Any questions you have for Richard or anything that you want to add, any old friends, if you want to just delve in and send some crypto messages and just see how he reacts to them. We're always up for that type of thing. But it's, as always, it's just a night to tell a few stories and a few rally stories primarily. We have a rally audience, Richard, but I appreciate nowadays you're probably doing as much in racing as you are in rallying.
Yes. Funny enough, I was at Snetterton driving a race car, which I can tell you is a new thing for me, but I'm getting up to speed, and we've got 10 or 11 cars at Spa this weekend, so that's become a big thing, and it's new discipline. Any rally drivers out there, get yourself circuit racing because it makes you quicker.
It
There's no
does.
doubt about it. It helps.
Yeah, I did a podcast with Rob Wilson a couple of years
Ah,
back, and Rob, I think at the time that 14 out of maybe 14 or 16 out of the current F1 drivers he had coached at some point, and some is an ongoing thing with him, and yeah, just even his techniques, there's a couple of them. If you were able to practice those and understand them, and just really understand the laws of physics a little bit better, and what tires need to do for the load that's on them from accelerating, braking, and cornering. And of course, you can only do one or two of those things at the same time.
well, I spent one afternoon with him because he set up a Porsche for someone. I'm without doubt, no doubt, that the worst experience he's ever had. Made absolutely no improvement. I didn't understand any of it. But at the same time, I think he was working with Chris Atkinson. I think Mika Hervinen. So he's an extraordinary man, and I've never drunk so much tea in an afternoon. So I cherish it.
Yeah, and his Nokia phone at the time, I'm sure he was timing you with that.
Still got it. And his great mate Joe McCarry. Actually, Joe has got a phone that can send WhatsApps, but the Nokia is never far away.
Brilliant. So if we go right the way back then, Richard, to just talk about your dad's career as a driver, I remember Francis Tuttle and Beatles many, many years ago, and certainly before my day. I'm sure he was that. So what's the history of that, and how did we get to? I just want to bring it up to how we got involved with Porsche.
I'm sat 100 meters away from his original workshop. He moved to this site when he was 17. He was a farmer. Went to Australia to get it. Actually, the greenhouse, he started the nurseries when he was 17, 18. They were very entrepreneurial. And he went to Australia to get a job as a farmer, arrived, and there was a drought. Couldn't get a job on a farm, got a job in a VW workshop in the end in Perth. So he became a VW mechanic. Went from Perth, then had a bit of a stint in South Africa. Came home a mechanic, left a farmer, came home
Hmm.
a mechanic. So that's where it started. And his original shed is 100 meters away. So uh, he he did something pretty extraordinary when he was younger. So he had an elder half brother, and they used to drive from here, Wardington, to Tehran in VW campers across Europe, Beirut, you name it. And the photo album. I mean, none of us have lived by comparison to what they did. And they got arrested, they got him put in jail, they changed engines, extraordinary stuff. But what it meant is he'd spent, I'm not going to tell you what they were doing, but they did it quite often. Um, but they spent an enormous amount of time off road. So in about 75, 76, like my dates are awful, but bear with me.
Yeah.
He wrote to VW, said he wants to do the London Sydney Rally. Could they send him some instructions as to how to how to prepare a VW Beetle?
Yeah.
And that's what he did. And off he set. And again, the story goes he set off with a spare engine. And I guess probably whether it was the M25 or whatever it was there, he was going, bearing in mind the rally started in London, he was on the way to Dover. Engine went wrong. And he changed the engine on the side of the road, whilst at the same time some bloke didn't get his puncture repaired by the AA. And that was the spare engine gone. And it hadn't even got out of England. So he chucked it on the roof rack because he had this big roof box and drove all the way to Sydney. They didn't do much sleeping. I don't think they didn't book a single hotel. I think that was the year Andrew Cowan won. So
Was that 77 then? Yeah, the first time
it
you
would have
did it.
been, yeah,
Mm.
Singapore Airlines, 77. So that made
Yeah.
me about three. So he left home with a small workshop running away, mum with three kids, and off he went. So he obviously wanted to do what he wanted to do. But that was the start of the thing. And funny, it's ironic that the London Sydney then became a huge thing later on in life. But he essentially ran a small service workshop. So he did a bit of that. And then, of course, the VW Beetle stuff, he set about beating everybody in Beetles on a national championship, and we still have that car. I've never driven it. We built a new shell. In fact, my first ever rally, which was in Carlisle, the Pirelli Stages Rally, Colin McRae won in a Legacy. Dad and I drove up, scrutineered in the morning. So we went with a trooper and a Beetle on the back, scrutineered in the morning, and Mike Harris scrutineered. We didn't have any door bars, so we went round the back of the shed, welded some door bars in, did the rally. It took me twice as long as Colin took. I think we were stone last, and I couldn't get away from the pace car. Anyway, so I did drive his original rally car, but he then went on to some escorts, and his most notable result, which is staggering, actually, if you imagine it in today's climate, he was 12th overall on the RAC rally he hired an escort from Jan Churchill. He was the first privateer behind all the factory cars. And it was one of the Pooh cars, Pooh 505 or 504R.
505R, yeah.
Well done. Well, that was a staggering result in an escort. So he obviously went to the dark side, and he would not be allowed to get in one of them today. That's unacceptable.
No, no.
But there's a massive, amazing photo. So he had a lot of fun. The Beetle thing continued. He then got a Group A golf. He won his class in the Swedish rally. He won his class in RAC rally. He actually drove to Sweden, did the rally, won, came home in the golf with a tow bar. So he had a big opportunity with the Audi 80 Quattro, which went away from him because he went training, broke his leg, was in hospital for 3 months on traction. I think Harold Demuth took the car over. I think he gave the Audi 80 Quattro Group A car its first international win in the UK, with Michel as a teammate in a Quattro. And then the only time he drove a proper Quattro was on the Welsh Rally, still with a leg in plaster as course car.
That's incredible.
And if you look at my school books from when I've never been very good at writing, but every week my school books, and I've got them, they're all scanned on the computer. They were a motoring news report with Voldegard Pond, Malcolm Wilson, Malcolm Patrick, you name it, I covered it. Blomqvist, you can imagine how good my spelling was then.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wrote a report every week. My teacher must have been massively genned up on British rallying in that time.
Fantastic. Yeah, that was 80. When would that have been? 83, 84, 83. The Quattro, the 80s, anyway, I think.
I remember
the Muth in the Circuit of Ireland rally and around that time.
But I remember we had a red Audi 80 Quattro, and I remember what an amazing thing it was. But I mean, as I say, it was a shame. Rallying, as we all know, is about opportunities, and that one went away from him. But he's enjoyed it and ploughed a massive amount of energy into it all the way through. And then the Porsche thing obviously eventually came around, which would have been 84, 85. And what happened there was David Richards, who lived 15 miles away or whatever, came to the workshop one morning and he wanted to buy Dad's car. And Dad had a white 911. And Dad said, of course you can buy it. What's it for?
Just a road car, yeah?
Just a road car. David said, he was pitching this rally program to Rothmans and he wanted to make a show car. So Dad said, well, that's great. You can buy my car as long as I can do the paintwork. Or in fact, I think he actually converted the car. So that he was the first man, and he painted himself. He was the first man to have painted a Rothmans livery on a 911.
Really? And painted it on?
911 rally car, I should say.
Hmm.
And again, how much truth there is in this, but apparently David drove it to Milton Keynes to the meeting with the Rothmans at the Rothmans headquarters, and during the presentation, made them all look out the window, and there was a Rothmans car in the car park.
Wow.
So what then happened is Matter prepared the shells. Obviously, DR Autosport, as they were then, would have built the cars and run them. And slowly but surely, we started to do all the repair work, the chassis repair work, and the paint work. And so that's really where Dad would have learned all about 911 shells. And even today, I'd say that's one of our USPs. We still probably build the best 911 shell there is. A bit of evolution gone on, but essentially that's what was happening then. And then the relationship with David obviously continued into Prodrive. And then along came M3s, 6R4s, all the touring car stuff, and eventually Legacies, Subaru Legacies with Colin driving them. And we went all the way through to WRC. We stopped doing their work from WRC on, but I think he claims Colin paid for his house because we had a 24-hour a day facility running, repairing Prodrive cars. And just on Colin and Rothmans and Legacies, I remember, and I have a photo. Be careful about this. There was a body shell, and it had Rothmans colours on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a picture of it on the top of a skip, on top of a VW van, and it went to Smiths of Bloxham.
I know.
And I suspect it never came back. Bloody hell, do I wish I still had that shell.
Wow, it's just, but
So,
you could say that about a lot of the stuff that you've had at your place, like incredible. And you think of the different Porsches you've had over the years. If you had them now, yeah, you
yeah,
probably have
well,
a fair selection anyway.
you can't live like that. But I have still got, and I hope David doesn't want it back, I've still got Billy Coleman's bonnet, which he crashed, I think, on the circuit of Ireland. It's an aluminium bonnet, still with the stickers. It wouldn't fit so well, but it's a real SCRS aluminium bonnet. So that's a cool thing. But no, it's yeah, you can't look back. It was an extraordinary time, and obviously it's ultimately the foundation of what we are today.
Brilliant. And then your dad started to drive the 911s then. So what was it, about 91 is the first time the first
Yeah, which
recollection of.
which was really this wasn't quite the start of historic rallying, but it was pretty close to it. They
Hmm.
relaunched Nick Britton relaunched the London Sydney rally, and so Dad thought, well, actually, let's build a car, and he had one client, um, and he built his own car. So then he rang his mate up who did it, his best mate from school, rang his mate up who did it in 1977. Come on, let's go and do the London Sydney again.
Hmm.
Now, Anthony, who was co-driver, they started to share the driving, but didn't last long. He probably hadn't done a rally since 1977. Anyway, they jumped in the car. I remember we went down as a family to Canary Wharf. They got safely through Europe. There or thereabouts. Roger Clark was an escort. There were some good guys. Ross Dunkerton, people like that.
Yeah.
And they weren't quite on the pace, but they were there or thereabouts. And I remember Mum flew out with because back then they didn't drive, so it wasn't quite as long a route as the original one. They flew and they landed in Perth, and then there was obviously a massive rally across Australia
Yeah.
to get them to Sydney. But Mum took out a set of short ratio gearbox parts, so he, as you do, swapped the ratios on the rest day when he got to Perth, and the next stage just destroyed everybody, and that was the start of their sort of winning streak. And they had a really good run. Anthony at this point realised that he was losing time. Dad had to make it up. So in the end, Hans did the right thing, jumped into the co-driver's seat, and they got all the way there with an extraordinary win. And that's the thing that really put his name on the map in terms of building Porsches.
Yeah, 1993, and of course, a Porsche's the reliability is quite incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that still remains the thing. I mean, the 911s in that period, let's say we're typically dealing with from 1965 through to 1984,
Hmm.
and they are unbelievably good cars from the factory. If you ever drive a 73 RS, and I mean a bog standard one, is
Yeah.
comparable to stuff we drive today. I cannot imagine how it felt back then.
It's funny. I did one of these shows with Cal Curley.
Yeah, he
Must have been
drove
about
one of our cars as well.
18 months ago. Yeah, and I think it was 74. Certainly, my recollection is about 10. I remember seeing all these 911s in the Circuit of Ireland rally back then, 5 day rally, 1,500 stage miles probably. And Cahill won it in 74, and it was a car he bought standard, I think about £6,000 at the time, cage in it, safety equipment. And there were six of them finished in the top 10, if I remember right, that year.
Well,
Exactly the car you talked about, the RS
I
Carrera
bet
3.7.
Desi and Ronnie McCartney were
Yeah,
but two of those six. And Ronnie particularly, and Desi's a great friend, but I used to stay with Ronnie when we came to do the Ulster Rally,
yes,
and wow, what a guy he was. And Desi's just extraordinary as an engineer and as a car guy. But yeah, they went to the dealer, bought the car, won prize money all year, and sold it. And they made money at it,
they
and it
did,
was a
yeah.
standard car.
Yeah, they went across to Chiswick to AFN to buy the car. So they're telling me the story. It's just amazing. Then, of course, as you say, going to Stuttgart to collect the prize money of Mr. Porsche. And yeah, uh,
Extraordinary
different,
times.
yeah. And standard car, as you said. And what about, going back then and the tire technology we had back then? Cathal Curley didn't seem to be bothered, and Desi, they never seemed to be bothered about all the talk is mentioned about it on a wet road, how hard a 911 would be to drive, but it didn't seem to bother those guys much. Maybe they just had this extra talent. I appreciate nowadays in modern tires, if you went back to the classic cars, it would be a little bit different.
I think there's a lot of chat. I mean, first there's a lot of chat about how quick 911s are today. But because they won a lot, but they never won on the world stage, and they won a bit in Europe. But don't forget the factory never went rallying.
Yeah,
So of course Ford and Opel and all those guys put massive resource into it. So um, I the simple fact is, and this is a fact, and I know I'm sat in a shed full of 911s, you can't beat them. Um, and I know, look, Ryan drove very well on the recent Roger Albert Clark rally. He didn't
yeah.
win on pace, but I can promise you that car we gave him wasn't all that. But they've got a 2.7 or a 3 litre engine. They've got independent rear axle, so you've got traction, and you've got great suspension. So if you just look at the base ingredients of a 911, it's unbeatable. And the only thing everyone talks about the rear, the front's probably the biggest problem. It definitely was with dampers as they were. It's a bit light,
Hmm.
but the rear is amazing. And once you get the hang of it, they are unbeatable. And I think the one thing I have to conclude is on a blind road, you can probably take well, you can definitely take liberties in an escort that you perhaps can't in a 911. But if you give the same guy a 911 and an escort on day one, he's going to go quicker in the escort. Give him some time in the 911, and as long as there's a level of talent there, I'm going to say it again, they're unbeatable. So no, Ryan's recent victory on the Roger Albert Clark has somewhat inspired us again to come out and do some local rallying and keep these escort boys honest because there's too many of them.
Yeah, there are lots, definitely. And it's no different to Mark II Escort. Put a load of weight in the back of it, get the traction. That's the main thing, really. You can do as much driving techniques and talk about it, but if you can get the traction, it's the usual thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, and your own driving career was quite established at one point. You were quick in your day. I remember. I think my first recollection was probably Civic days. When would that have been? When I was in Neil, probably 90, end of 96, start of 97, something like that.
Yeah, 97, 98 with as we were talking very briefly beforehand with Richard Asquith and what an extraordinary guy he was. No, I obviously I started on the Beetle, which was semi-pointless, but quite amusing to race a Trabant round the. I was the youngest ever WRC entrant until I think it was either Latvala or Herman got that record,
Okay.
and I'm sure now Someone else has got it, but I was the youngest then in a Group A VW Beetle with about 45 horsepower, multicolored, and it was the last year a Beetle could be used. In fact, it was called a Fusca because they were Brazilian. But so yeah, I did some Beetle stuff, and then I built a Vauxhall Nova, which I bought from Ian Bishop. Do you remember Ian from
I do.
Prodrive?
Yeah, he's sadly
Yeah,
no longer with us.
bless him.
Yeah.
That was a long trip. I drove from here to Stranraer, picked up a car from Ian and drove back. And he said to me all the bits were there. Well, I can assure you it wasn't. But he was only down the road working at Prodrive, so I was to drag him over at night. And I was terrified when I first jumped in a front wheel drive car. But of course they were brilliant. So we won the sort of junior championship there, which was amazing. And then I had a couple of outings with Richard in a Civic, which was great, but I didn't have any money, so I couldn't continue that. I built a Porsche and did a bit with that, and I had a hell of a story with my first rally in Belgium. I lined up about fifth, and I think ahead of me was Droogmans, Voldegaard, McRae, some other
Snyders.
legends, Snyers, and I got to the end of the first stage. I think it was my first stage on tarmac. I was about 30 seconds quicker than them. I was like, shit, this is good. And Bjorn, who I started to know then, he came over and gave me a bollocking because he said I was going too quickly. And then, sure enough, next stage, I went off. And again, I only momentarily, a couple of minutes probably, got back to the service area in the middle of a town centre, and he came up to me and said, "I know exactly where you went off." And I said, "How do you know that?" He said there was a crest into a 90 right, and there was a surface change just after the crest. Of course, I had no idea. I hadn't picked it on the recce.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I spent the next couple of days fighting back, and I think I finished second behind Jimmy. But the 911 did teach me an awful lot about driving. And funny enough, you do drive them in a very similar way to four-wheel drive. And then trying to get the order. Then I said to David Richards, "Can I have a Vivio for Rally GB, which was when was the snowy rally, RAC rally, where
96.
Armin Schwartz won?"
He did, yeah. Stig was third.
So the Japanese sent us Colin McRae's Safari Vivio. And just in case anyone knows where that is, that's the one car, I don't know very many cars, but the one car I could buy back would be that car. It was 600cc supercharged little Vivio, four-wheel drive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of all the years to have a four-wheel drive car for the rally, that was it.
Yep.
Anyway, bloody thing didn't turn up here until literally a couple of days before, and it was blue just as it left Kenya, pretty much. 555 colours.
Yeah.
We had a sponsor, First Line, an automotive company down the road, and so we painted it white, first job, and it came with a 40-foot container full of everything. I mean, tyres, no doubt unsuitable, had absolutely everything, engines, gearboxes, you name it. And it came with an engineer called Mac, and he was a Japanese engineer who'd actually ended up working with Prodrive a bit, but a wonderful man, and didn't say very much. Anyway, painted this thing, went for a little run round the lanes, and went straight to Birmingham.
Mm-hmm.
And there were spectator stages for the day. And as we went through the day, it got worse and worse and worse, and it wouldn't run. So by the time we got to the overnight halt, it could barely drive itself along. We got it into the underground car park, and the next morning, we couldn't get out of the car park because it didn't have enough power to come back up. Now, interestingly, at the same time, Dad wasn't on the rally that day because he was running Walter Roll on the probably the Miller's Oil Classic RAC rally.
Okay.
So Walter was driving one of our cars. That didn't end well. He won, but then some got nailed on a technical infringement. But long story there. Anyway, so he said to Matt, "We've got to change the cylinder head." What had happened is we told the Japanese that we couldn't run out of gas, and they said that no problem. We've changed the ECU so it'll run pump fuel. So they hadn't. It nailed the cylinder head, which was the most complicated cylinder head you've ever seen. And we changed it on the side of the road in an Esso station or something. And Mac was reading out a torque sheet to us.
Mm-hmm.
He said it would take 48 hours because he had the manual. Anyway, 48 minutes later, a bit longer than that, we set off. By then, we were on the bloody M6 rush hour traffic trying to get to Wales, and we went OTL. In the meantime, my brother had been to a local farmer to get probably a 500 litre, maybe more, drum of avgas that was towed around in a trailer. So he was charging around Birmingham with a bloody avgas a trailer full of avgas. It was you wouldn't be able to do it today. Anyway, a great thing, but it came to nothing. And then after that, I actually said to David again, look, bear in mind I'd worked from Prodrive, I'd done the gardening from when I was 12.
This is the thing, yeah. I was going to bring this up actually because I remember you going to Prodrive and you helped the Irish kid with go karts and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was when I had a license, a driving license then, but literally when I was 12 in the summer holidays, I started off uh, weeding and mowing, um, and then I graduated to car cleaning. And very another funny but very quick story. DR had obviously a helicopter, mega thing.
Yeah.
It was the one without the tail rotor. It was just had a jet or something.
Uh-huh.
So I was sent to clean the helicopter, and I don't know. You'll all remember, and it's still available. That Worth silicon spray. Well, that stuff was dynamite. Whatever you threw it at, it shined. So
Yeah.
I went around the interior of this helicopter. I must have used 2 or 3 cans of this stuff, and I stood back and thinking, "Bloody hell, that's amazing."
It was
So,
STP, wasn't it? There's a pump
yeah,
action at the top of it. I remember now.
God
Yeah.
knows, but it was lethal. So I very proudly went to David and said, "Look, your helicopter's never looked as good." And he came out, and I was absolutely horrified because you remember it's slippy.
Yeah, yeah, of
You
course.
couldn't touch anything.
Yeah.
There's no way you could fly it. So I had to then to properly brake clean it all off and start again. But no, I had an amazing time there, and I was looked after incredibly well. Because I sort of I got kicked out of school, so I wasn't really into education. So working was that was what I did, and I ended up working for the customer team under Paul Howarth. Remember him shouting at me
Yeah.
every morning.
Yeah.
Um, David Campion, and I went. My first trip was with them to Palembang, onto Perth Valley, Australia, and my direct boss. Well, I went with Murray Grierson,
Yep.
but I wasn't working with Murray. I was working with Simon Redhead, who I've known ever since then. And Simon works for me, has done for, I don't know, he's worked for me 10 or 15 years. But Simon was my boss, and we went on this 1 month trip. Bill Gwynn, I shared a room with Bill Gwynn, another legend who's sadly no longer with us. But I tell you what, as a 17-year-old who never even had a beer, the flight from London was an eye opener, as was the rest of the trip. I had to learn pretty bloody fast. I was terrified of everything.
I can
Um,
imagine. Simon York.
yeah, no, there is no better bloke to have on your side. But no, look, we had an amazing time, and then I did some stuff in Beirut, and actually I applied to go to uni whilst I was in Beirut, and 2 weeks later I went to Oxford Books, and that was that year. That was when I did the Nova. So I've got out of sync, but in the end I said to DR that they were selling Group N and it was becoming a thing, but they'd never run one.
Yeah.
And I said, why don't we have a go at running one on the British Championship? John Lloyd of Jardine Lloyd Thompson, General Rallying Hero, offered to help a little bit. And funny enough, Andreas Mikkelson's father, Steiner, gave me $5,000 to help me do the Swedish rally the year after. So I had a few bits of help. But so we had a standard Group N car, and I need to be quite clear about this. It really was a standard car from the beginning, and we sort of developed it as the year went on. And our main rival then would have been David Higgins in the Barrett's car, which was a very well developed thing.
Yeah.
Jonathan Carey was my engineer. Jonathan has recently been. He's probably spent the last 10 years making Subarus in America go very quickly because he's the lead engineer on the Subaru Rally Team USA. And we developed this car throughout the season, and we sort of got a bit quicker. But and it came. The final thing was we did Rally GB that year, and look, we finished second in the BRC Production Cup, and David comfortably beat us everywhere, to be perfectly honest. So then for the RAC, I said, come on, we're going to have a proper go at this. And so we bought proper fuel for the first time because we were allowed turbo fuel. We've been using pump fuel. And we had a bit of a deal with Prodrive where I said, look, I want a Possum Born kit because everyone had a close ratio gearbox and we didn't.
Yep.
But of course, I wasn't allowed one. So, as Prodrive would not buy someone else's kit. And there was all that sort of talk about whether it was legal or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so that meant I had two choices of gearbox: a low ratio one, which was fragile, or a high ratio one, which was uncompetitive. Anyway, came down to last stage, and would it be Raymond Ferreros?
Yeah, Ramon. Andy Moss would have been co-driving them probably.
Yeah, so we were it was seconds going into the stage. Did they call it Markham Park? It finished in Markham Park.
Yeah, that's it.
Don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It was, we had, that was, I think it was the year Colin had a big accident and half of us were sent back to Cheltenham. And whilst we were asleep in Cheltenham, Raymond got something like a minute and a half on us on the stage. We were giving a nominal time. Anyway, we clawed all that time back and had a choice to go into the last stage, either, because we went through gearboxes every 2 stages. I either had one with 4 gears or one with 5 gears and no reverse. And we got jammed in 3rd gear halfway through the stage. So we finished second, which was Subaru's best result on a World Championship rally to date in a Group N car. So that was and I had Roger Freeman co-driving for me. That was it. Okay, so God, that was brilliant. He taught me in 3 days of wrecking and 3 or 4 days of rallying more than I can ever thank him for. And funnily enough, he had co-driven for Dad earlier.
I was going to say, yeah, he definitely did that, yeah.
But he taught me everything. He taught me about, we made notes on the recce about things we remember. So when we got to the stage, we remembered the tractor we got caught behind, and all of a sudden you had a picture of the stage. And then we had nicknames for certain corners. He'd say, this is where Ari had a big jump or whatever. And so all of a sudden we could build a picture, but we went incredibly quickly one night in the fog. Mark Perrott was another British Championship guy, and we took minutes off these guys.
Yeah.
It was all down to Roger, and just he made me so relaxed in the car because we just had such a laugh. He was a brilliant co-driver, a brilliant man, and of course, we'll talk about it later, but it didn't end well. But anyway, that was the Prodrive thing, and we did a couple of rounds of the WRC next year. We did Safari, Sweden, and Portugal, and I'm afraid to say, just a shocker. Just nothing went right. But Safari I hit in Eland. That was the end of that car. Sweden I went pretty well, got quicker and quicker, but it was a learning exercise. It was a really good one. And then in Portugal, fuel pump went wrong in stage 1, so that was the end of that. And so then that was Subaru. And then,
but wasn't there an opportunity for you to do something in the States with Prodrive, or
that was the following year?
Right.
That was the following year, and that was my big chance. And it didn't happen for there's a long story for lots of reasons, but essentially Carl Schreibel, who was the chosen Subaru driver, was a 45-year-old guy, and I would have been probably 21, maybe 22. And the Subaru team sort of said, "Well, we can't have this young kid trying to teach an old guy." So Mark Lovell got the drive. I remember the drive day. Robbie Head was there. Pernilla Wilfredson was there. That's his wife.
Yes, she was quick too.
So the sad thing is, I've been told categorically, look, this is just a thing. You've got this job, so you're going to go and live in America. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it didn't happen, and that really, really upset me. I was pissed off because I'd been working for Prodrive since I was 12, and so David was typically very, very nice. He said, look, you can come and work next to Nick, whoever his job was, who went on to run BAR. You can come and work next to him because I'd done my degree by now.
Yeah,
I got a first class honours degree, which wasn't too bad for a guy who got kicked out of school.
This is Nick Fry we're talking about. Yeah,
there you go. Well done. You're an encyclopedia. He said you can come and work for him, or you can go and carry on being a rally driver. And I felt so upset by actually I felt betrayed actually. So I said, no, I'm gonna go and do my own thing. And I'd been speaking to a chap in America who said I could come and drive a Mitsubishi. So I rang him up and said, hey, actually, I'm available. So I went to Santa Barbara, California. My next door neighbor was Michael Douglas, so I wasn't in a bad part of the world. And along with a guy called Stuart Ashby, who used to work for us a little bit, we built an Evo 6. Mm-hmm. And so we built this car. I drove from Santa Barbara to Chicago to get the engine mapped with a bloke who, to this day, I still don't know his name. I forgot it as we left Santa Barbara, and I never recovered. We stopped off with a chap called Murray, can't remember his second name, got the car mapped, and we went to Chattanooga, which was in Tennessee. So I drove all the way across the states with a truck and trailer. I found a driveway, literally a private driveway to test the car.
Mm-hmm.
So I went up and down there, wrecked whoever's driveway it was. I mean, really wrecked it. It was so bad in the end, literally was like, okay, we've got to get out of here. And then went down to the start of the rally. And John Benny was co-driving for me. We did a recce. Must have done a recce then. Can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I was just some English dude. Back in there was John Buffum, Noel Lawler, Mark Lovell, Carl Schreibel. There was sort of two Hyundai factory cars, and then obviously the Prodrive cars. I remember the guy said to me, "What's your plan?" I said, "Well, I'm going to win." He said, "Well, what do you mean you're going to win?" I said, "Well, if I can't beat John Buffum, and John, who's a great mate by the way now, if you can't beat John Buffum, he must have been 60, then
But a wealth of experience, so
50 something." But even so, I said, "Look, that was it. It was a pacemaker rally because they hadn't really had pacemakers in America." I said, "Look, if I can't beat John, then honestly, I might as well give up now." Anyway, it was 17 stages and we won 13. And the very, very proud moment was on day one. I drove out of Parc Fermé in the lead of the rally, and to my left were all my mates from Prodrive. And I don't begrudge any of them. They did their job. But there was them, and there was a whole load of Subaru guys from Japan. And it was a bit of a moment where I went out car number one and give them a bit of a wave, and we finished off with a win. So that was amazing.
let's have a quick look at.
Here's Tuttle once again, looking very smooth as he comes through. And let's take a look at that same right-hand hairpin. Very smooth, very quick. That translates into a finish time of 106.69. He's the leader after leg one. Richard Tuttle is maintaining his lead, still looking smooth. Hardly a problem all weekend with that car. We're down now to the final stage, and Richard Tuttle catches some air, obviously not coasting. He's maintaining a very fast pace on this, his first SCCA Pro Rally. Can he hold the lead and take the win? His time, 3 hours, 19.33 minutes. It's champagne time as the winners celebrate. It's Richard Tuttle and John Benny, the winners. This is Tim Winker. See you at the next SCCA Pro Rally.
There you go.
There you go. Well, I should have gone slower because next rally was Rim of the World, and they bought so Bernsey was driving for them in the World Championship,
Mm-hmm.
and they bought an unlimited. So they took the restrictor out, WRC car,
Yeah,
and that was that.
okay.
I beat them once more later on in the season, but yeah, that was impossible to beat them in that car. But no, look, amazing experience.
What was the story of the Hyundai, this car in the States as well?
Well, that was the end of that year because we sort of didn't have any budget, and Hyundai had not led a rally, and John said to me, "Look, can you come and do a rally for us?" And he gave me two options. I went to a test. One was a car which had a welded centre diff, literally a welded centre diff, and the other had plated diffs. He said, "Which one do you prefer?" And I preferred the more modern one with plated diffs. And yeah, I was winning. I was leading the rally. That was the first time David Higgins came out, actually.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a long story. But Andy Brown, who now works for me, ran that car. David came out. Anyway, I was leading the rally after 3 stages. First time they led the rally all year, and a rally. And the head gasket went. I think it might have been something to do with that water splash. That was a bloody big hit through that water splash. But it was on that. Don't forget, those rallies then were blind. Nicky Beach was co-driving for me then.
Yeah.
And so you had really bad maps in a sort of unrestricted Group A car. I had a nice dog box, good engines, but anyway, again, sort of unlucky because I did my job. And then next year they built 2 new cars, and Mark Higgins went out and drove it. So that was it. I stopped there, and then I realised that a few things just hadn't come my way, and I better go on. I wasn't going to half do anything, and I think it's probably a lesson in life.
It's something that I have never asked you about as well. Remember the Seat Super 6?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
We tried to make it the Super 7.
You tried to get it to Super 7, remember?
Mike
But
Brown. Mike Brown won that.
yeah, you came along to the assessment day at Silverstone, and I had you as a shoe, and I thought absolutely Richard's the man. And I think just on the day you got a bit uh, too overexcited. Maybe I don't know. I've never spoke to you about what happened on the day, but
I'd forgotten that. I don't remember anything. But it's funny actually. I as I'm talking to you now, I'm reasonably confident. I've gone on and done whatever I've done. But actually, I still consider myself quite shy.
Mhm.
So if it takes a drinks party, bloody hell, I don't want to speak to anyone. But if I'm Richard Tuthill, who I am now, and I'm
Yeah,
working, which is what I do a lot of, then I can be this person.
yeah,
But I'm fundamentally quite shy and and probably nervous when I was younger.
uh-huh.
And for example, the David Higgins thing in America, which is I test drove that Subaru 2 rallies before. Andy Brown said to me, "Come and drive this car." I think it was Andy. "Come and drive this car." And I
Hmm.
went to drive it, and I did some testing, and I was a good driver. I had done a lot of driving. I didn't even think to say, "Can I do a rally in it?"
Yeah.
Because I wasn't driving for anyone else, but I was so shy. And yeah, I think I was probably nervous, and um, I lack confidence. It's interesting. I know you help drivers, and I've helped a lot of drivers. And I would, again, another piece of advice. You need to have someone on your side who's going to speak up for you and help you. But yeah, the Seat thing. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Another one, absolutely gutted. But I must have cocked up on the day.
Just for yeah,
Because of
for those people who don't remember, so Set Super Six was an idea by Gary Savage from Set to find the next British sensation. So the idea being we get six Seat Ibizas, uh, six drivers clearly go out on six rallies, and then the winner got a factory drive in the kit car the following year, which, as you said, became Mike Brown in the third as a third driver in some rallies. So we put
used to
together,
engineer a Prodrive together with me.
yeah, of
Wow.
course, we put together an assessment day at Silverstone where with some driving disciplines and lots of other things as you can imagine a typical driver assessment. So we had 12 selected on the day, and the idea was to find six. And as I said, I definitely thought Richard Tuttle was a shoe in for it, but I think on the day it just got to you.
Yeah, I think it's a funny thing, and I don't know whether surnames are anything, whether they are, but I didn't, I probably didn't perform, and it was one of those things, and that was the point. And I had some success in America. I if ever I deserved an opportunity, probably would have been there, but it wasn't to be. And do I regret stopping driving? Look, there's no one you haven't spoken to on this podcast who would do anything other than be a professional driver. Let's be
Yeah,
bloody honest about that.
sure. Yeah, yeah.
Has it worked out? Well, it's not.
It's
It's
not
not,
too shabby.
not too bad. And
but
and
but
actually, I've done a lot of driving since.
yeah, well, what about these days? Then you go back to historic element. This is the Robin Hood stages, I think, in 2007. Again, a Carrera. That's probably an RS 2.7, is it?
Yeah, the 3-litre engine and some dodgy dampers we got excluded for, but it was that was another. You couldn't get an answer on some homologation stuff actually because it took so long. So on that rally, we just decided to run them, and then by running them, you got an answer within 3 days because it was a process. But I beat Don Buckley that day. That was a good fight.
Hmm.
But that year, then I had an amazing battle with Marty McCormack on the Isle of Man. Like in 2008, I came out on top, which was it was a shame. He retired halfway through the second day, but we were having a bloody good scrap. And actually, I saw him on Roger Albert Clark this year. He was spectating. I said, "Come on, let's both do it next year, and you can beat me because you'll be way quicker than me now." But the historic thing was just back then. It was about a bit about promoting what we did, and there is no greater car than an i11 to drive on tarmac or gravel. They're so much fun, and yeah, I'm hugely privileged to have done a bit of that. And I don't compete anymore. Maybe I will one day, but it's not a priority at the moment.
Well, we have to clearly talk about taking a cup car and turning it into a rally car, the RGT side.
That was a great idea.
This is definitely one that made you a lot of money, no doubt.
It cost me a fortune. It was perhaps I said at the outset I don't think too much, and
Yeah.
I've been working on this, and Michelle Mouton has finally got it approved with the FIA, and I was one safari. I'd actually gone away on a nice holiday, which is a rare thing, and I rang up someone. I ordered a cup car, an old second-hand one, thinking that we'd put a guard on it and some wheels and go rallying. Well, bloody hell, it wasn't that at all. And that rally was the most disastrous, stressful time of my life, bar none. We worked like hell to get this car ready. The FIA was so uninterested in that class, still are. They absolutely did everything they could to ruin it before it started. And we turned up to Germany. I'd been working 23 hours a day. I was absolutely knackered. We had to make a restrictor in the town Trier, in Trier, because they hadn't given us a restrictor size. So during that test, actually, it was unrestricted. We didn't have gear ratios, so I had a cut gearbox that was geared to do 200 and something miles. I don't think I ever got out of third gear. And it was an absolute bloody shambles. We got the gold pass 20 minutes before we started the rally. So you can imagine, it should have been the most wonderful experience. And okay, I shared a car with Stefan Prevo, who's a mate, and the most experienced co-driver of all time, I think, or he was, but maybe
just a complete rally nut.
Yeah, and he's still works with us in Kenya. He was in Kenya with us this year. I love him to pieces. Anyway, it was an absolute. I don't know how much I can swear, but it was a shit show. So, but, and by the way, I could have built my building 3 years earlier if I hadn't done that. The highlight, there's one. The highlight was honestly the coolest rally car, and wherever you went from that year on, be it with Francois Delacour, be it with John Coyne, the place stopped. And a year with Francois, who is certifiably mental still.
Amazing.
But just the most fantastic bloke. I mean, we used to test him. For Monty, we tested near his house, so he would bike up the mountain, 60 Ks, test all day, and then bike home in the evening. Never wore a seatbelt. I love him to pieces, and he loves Porsches.
Haven't your kids gone out there for homestay or whatever the equivalent's called nowadays?
Charlie did, my middle one, and he's a sensitive bloke. So living with the Delacours for a week wasn't a huge success, if I'm perfectly honest. But my other daughter was on a French exchange, 200 k's away. Honestly, Ruth and I just spent days going up and down the motorway dealing with crying kids. But I was in touch with Francois. It was the most wonderful thing to work with him.
Just give us an insight around that, because everybody in the world, any interest in rallying would understand.
He hates regulations, so he wouldn't wear his fireproof suit anywhere. He would fight with marshals. He'd get his driver pass and give it to one of his mates, so he could never get in anywhere. But it didn't matter. He had so much passion, and that project was about passion. And if you ask Francois today, he would genuinely look you in the eye and say, if you gave him a Toyota, he would beat Kalle Rivera today. That's what he'd say. And then he'd set about and prove it.
And you'd start to doubt whether you'd start to convince you, let's give him a shot anyway in tarmac and Corsica or somewhere, on a tarmac road.
He was pissed off in his career because he was labelled as a tarmac expert. He came very, very close to winning the World Championship that year. Anyway, no, honestly, wouldn't change it for a world. It was the most unsuccessful commercial project we've ever done.
Yeah.
But it did introduce us to a whole new world of clients, and I don't regret it. And actually, John Coyne's car's down there, and the FIA wouldn't let us use it on gravel, and we converted it to gravel as a test exercise, but they wouldn't let us use it. And I promise you, that's if you want to spend an afternoon in the forest, there is no greater car. The other day, I was with Kankinen's 99 WRC Subaru, and I had the RGT in the forest. and no competition. RGT every day. Yeah, amazing thing.
Wow.
Proper thing.
And what about the Baja driver then? I don't remember
Well,
any
that,
about this.
no, well, that was the thing. There was a lovely client. I get asked to do lots of nice things, and I'm respectful of my clients, and I'm respectful of my position, and so and a bit probably to do with my shyness. I don't say yes very often, but that was a guy called Steve Funk, and he supported Bjorn's effort when he won the Safari Rally. And I was taking him to a hotel one evening, I don't know, after the rally somewhere, not in Kenya, in England actually. He was here for Goodwood or something, and he said, "Would you like to do Baja?" I said, "Yeah, bloody love to do Baja." He said, "Well, you have to say yes now." I said, "Oh, no one's ever really asked me something like that." But he said, "Well, say yes then." So I said, "Okay, yeah, love to." And so we went out to America. That was an event everyone has to do, 1,000 miles straight. We had 4 drivers. I didn't sign a single piece of paper. So documentation is not a thing. It's not a thing. The 4 of us. Travis Clark, he comes back into life. He now manages Ken Block, which is extraordinary. Back in touch with him last year, but so Travis set off, promptly crashed the car after 20 k's. Meanwhile, we're about to get into a light aircraft somewhere in just into Baja. As the aircraft lands, the wheel falls off the aircraft. I kid you not. So we're now 2 hours delayed. And what you do is you fly in the aircraft and they dump you in the middle of the desert. We were in Baja or something. And I didn't remember at the time, but I was with the founder of Amazon. And we got into this aircraft they found a wheel, literally found a wheel, nailed it onto this thing. And when I say overloaded, there was more people and more bags in this light aircraft than there ever should have been. Plus the wheel had just fallen off. So I'm sure we weren't coming back from that trip, but we landed in the middle of the night, had a couple of hours sleep, and then I got in the car, and I did a 12-hour stint without getting out, complete with catheter and thinking you wet yourself every 2 hours.
Yeah.
You take a pee, your leg goes warm, you think, oh shit, that's leaked, and then it goes dry, you think you survived. But yeah, 12 hours, and the greatest thing was when the sun came up, because it was a foggy night, and it was tough, really, really tough. And the low speed damping on that buggy was crap. It could go over big jumps, but on corrugation, honestly, at a certain point, you had to slow down and breathe because you were just broken. But when the sun came up, I got the car safely there, and we got to the finish. But it was an extraordinary experience, which I will definitely repeat. And there is now a lovely event called Nora, which is a 4-day version for historic cars, and we will be there. Great experience.
Amazing.
Yeah.
But of course, a lot of what you do is safari. And if I just throw this photograph up, this is a long time ago.
1984, I reckon.
84.
My brother's on the bonnet with that hat. God knows where he got that. Katie's just between Dad with a plaster on her foot. That Marlborough shirt that Dad's got, I've still got, and it sort of fits me. And that's me obviously feeling a bit hot with my socks pulled up and Mum on the left. But that was in the middle of Nairobi. I still remember it like it was yesterday.
It's amazing. And some of the stories, probably one of the, I suppose, the maddest service story was the repairing of this car.
Yeah, it was a day. What a man. And yeah, the most extraordinary thing, obviously that was the most extraordinary repair that you sort of can't really do that anywhere. But Bjorn was sort of doing what he does in Kenya and generally in the mix, and he doesn't make many mistakes. But him and his son Mateus were on a stage, and there was a truck stuck in some mud. And at the last minute, Bjorn tried to go left instead of keeping right, got into a rut, and there's a photo before that no one really needs to see. But the roll cage was just bent at a 90-degree angle, and it can't have been any more than a couple of inches from Mateus's helmet. So they came off the end of the stage, and what you saw there was 20 minutes down the road. That was a time control, and we chucked a bit of perspex on it, taped it up, and sent him to the time control where it was a holding control. And just by pure chance, a year earlier, we had done some testing, and we had stayed at that hotel. And I knew round the back was a good workshop. So Bjorn went and had a cup of tea, and I rang a client who had left the rally for personal reasons a couple of days earlier. And I have to give Dad some credit. He said, well, look, let's just drive the rally car around on the rally with us. I was like, why do you want to do that? Anyway, we did. And I rang him, a chap called Thomas Floor, owner of VistaJet. So he's a bit of quite a high flyer. He said, Thomas, I need to borrow some bits off your car.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking he'd just say yes, because he was a great bloke. He finished fourth with us the year before. Anyway, he didn't just say yes. He said, what do you want? And I'm not a very good liar. So I said, well, I need your roll cage, which is obviously quite a big bit of the car. So he said, all right. I said, listen, I'm obviously going to, I will make it right. I will give you a new roll cage. I'll do whatever you want. So we wheeled his car in whilst the car's in the park in the time control, and we cut his roll cage out. I got on the phone to my fabricator, Rab, who's an ex-Prodrive fabricator who, if you don't know him, you would when you see him. He's a great bloke. But on this occasion, he said, I'm not going to do that, Richard. I'm not going to weld the roll cage in. So that's all right. I'll do it. No worries. You carry on. I'll do it. And then we cut up some axle stands. We got ourselves ready. And Bjorn came out of the passage control instead of turning right, turned left into this shed. And we fitted the top section of the roll cage. And we sleeved metal into metal. I welded it up with a stick welder. I cut my wrist open.
Yeah.
Ended up in hospital once we finished the car, obviously. And
Yeah.
Karl-Heinz Goldstein was the scrutineer.
Mm-hmm.
And my relationship with him suffered a bit because of his views on RGT a few years later. But there we are. I won't hold it against him. On this occasion, he watched me weld this roll cage, and there was no regulation that you couldn't change a roll cage, and he was happy it was safe. So we fixed it in super quick time. I mean,
Is it like 8 different bars? Is that right? If I remember the story right, 8 different pieces that you welded in.
yes, we had took some sections of Thomas's roll cage, sleeved them with axle stand, so it double sleeved, welded it all up, and then over that night, Tim Ashton, who was running some Datsuns, they were all bloody going crazy because Bjorn was out of the rally, and then next stage Bjorn was quickest.
Yeah.
So he went down the road, quickest in the stage, and he started to claw back time. He was probably 6 or 7 minutes behind. I can't remember the numbers. So they were all jumping up and down because they thought, shit, we're going to win. We've got a chance to win. And they said to Carl, so this is not on. He said, well, tell me a regulation that says it can't be done. And I'm happy that it's safe. And over the next couple of days, we chopped bits off the roof and we welded up and we kept fettling. And by the time the car got to the end of the rally, I mean, you wouldn't have known. And of course, Bjorn went on and won the event. And that was our first win in Africa. And it's a proper African story. And first time Bjorn won in a Porsche. And he'd been trying a few times. And it was a proper safari rally story. And I wish I had a scar to show for it, but they must have stitched it up well. So no scar.
Well,
I got the watch. I got the watch with the strap that was cut during the accident.
But out of all the stories for me, that's just an incredible one. You think of what actually happened, and to go on to win the rally and the first time Porsche won, it's just a proper rally story that, on which you've probably got thousands from Safari alone. Like
we've got a few. I'm not going to bore you with 1996 Panama to Alaska rally, but that was 12 days with 9 hours sleep. I think the first 12 days of that rally. But no, I think that what that really does, and I talk about it quite often, is we've sort of got this never say never. Nothing's impossible, and all rally teams have that attitude, and until someone says you can't do anything, or and by the way, you're not allowed to do that in Africa. It's an illegal service, but the illegal service is whatever the penalty is, 10 minutes or whatever it is. Well, if you're going to do an illegal service, Robert Woodside, if you're going to illegal service, make sure it's a proper one. And it was just one of those times where you either go home or you have a bloody good go, and that typifies what we do in this building every single day.
Yeah, but it's not just that. It's the drivers that you've worked with as a team over the years who are just like first name. Just throw in Michelle, Bjorn, Stig. It's just amazing when you think of the relationships that your dad initiated with the cream of the crop when it was back then, and they were just, you were hanging around with those legends, and it was just normal.
Yeah, it just sort of through very strange circumstances, these things tend to happen, and and you have extraordinary interactions. You know, the first time I ever drove in a car with Michelle was at Phil Price's, and you know, it's Michelle Boutron, so you jump in the car. And bear in mind, I was the guy who'd sit next to them and sort of trying to introduce them to how to drive a 911. And be it Francois and Michelle, I never did it with Stig or Bjorn because they were before my, you know, I was their service crew, but I hadn't driven very much. But you sat next to Marco Allen, Patrick Snyers, all of these guys, and you sit next to them and you're like, oh my God, you're awful. But you're Marco Allen. Why can't you drive? Why can't you drive? But the funny thing is that I did spar with Marco Allen, Bucle de Spa. He went up the road once and twice. I sat next to him. He was appalling, and Stefan Prevost was there, and we were looking at each other going, "Oh my God, this is a disaster." He couldn't really fit in the car, so I changed the pedal box, changed the seat, changed everything, and then I went to the hotel and said, "Marco, will you have another run in the car?" No. What do you mean no? Like, I'm not going to drive. I can't be bothered to drive it. So in the end, we forced him into the car. He went up the road and back in a straight line, pressed the brakes and said, it's perfect. And we were sat there going, well, this is a shocker. But in all cases, Bjorn, that's how he wrote us to the first car I ever sat in with him. Michelle, everyone, all they need to do is touch the brakes and accelerator and turn the steering wheel. They know everything because they've done so many hours behind the wheel. You know, they did 6 months recce for Kenya. So these guys have lived in cars. And then Marco in Spa the next morning, he was the fastest on the first stage by miles. And you're sitting there going, how did that happen? So no, we've had some extraordinary things. Travis Pastrana, hugely talented bloke behind the wheel. He did half of a safari rally with us with a broken ankle. Ken, I sat with Ken. And I've never seen someone so aggressive from the off.
So this is Ken Block, yeah.
Yeah, bloody good. And just for the record, an absolute gentleman. He did not wreck that car. They hit one massive hole, which happens, and it wasn't his fault, fairly well documented. But he an extraordinary guy, an absolute gentleman, great fun, very shy, takes a while to get to know. But it's fascinating. You know, Jimmy, I've done many rallies with Jimmy. I've co-driven for Jimmy because I had to jump in it when a co-driver didn't turn up. I've co-driven for Bjorn in Ypres, and we won that rally. He drove like a sensible bloke should to win the rally, and on the last stage he said to me, right, now I'm going to show you how to drive a Porsche, and then just turned it on in a way that I've never seen. Colin McRae, the fastest guy in the 911 within 100 metres of driving it, round the mile loop at Sweetland. I've never seen anything like it. Staggering. So anyway, really, it's extraordinary to meet these guys and actually in the end to call them friends is Bjorn particularly. He was my rallying grandfather. He was an extraordinary man and gifted like no other.
I want to see if I can share, if I can work this now, remember how to do it. I'd like to share Safari. One of your vlogs that you did, 2019, I think it was, with Stig. I think it was the last day, but hopefully this will work and you'll be able to watch this now. Let's see.
Good afternoon. I am stood next to a very recognisable face, Stig Blomqvist, of course, who is currently 6 point something seconds in the lead with 1 day to run. Stig.
It's not too bad, a second a day.
A second a day, okay. That's one way to look about it.
Yeah.
What's the plan tomorrow? We've got 2 stages, one proper one sort of Mickey Mouse.
I don't know. That's what I've been doing so far is just to see what's happening. Can't fucking think about anything.
This is the most relaxed man in the world, doesn't think too far ahead.
No.
Be nice to win again though.
Yeah, but that could be a bit tricky.
We'll try.
Yeah, of course, otherwise I've been fucking here now 8 days and been doing all this, so we have to try.
There we are. We will try together. Thank you, Stig.
Thanks.
So, some people have been asking where the old man is. As in my father, Francis. The answer is, he's on the event, 72 years old, I think. Mental age of a 16-year-old, fitness of a 40, 50-year-old. He's all over it. He's often found at the back of the 356. He's keeping a very, very close eye on it. What are you up to, Dad?
Oh, hello.
What are you doing?
Just final check for the last night. Putting some dampers on, putting some rear brakes on, checking around the engine. But I mean, we're really happy with everything. I mean, basically, we've had no problems with it.
Well, there you go. Very happily
I mean,
working at the back.
to get a 1956 car around Safari when they only started Safari in '53 was quite a good effort, I think. And,
I agree.
we've obviously made a few improvements, but it's still a very good effort for the car and for the girls to drive it, because
Not easy.
no, it can't be easy. But they've done really, really well.
There you go. Well done. Last service, boys.
Okay, well, the brakes are solid.
So that's your answer. Still up to his neck in it. It's great to have him on board. Obviously, he still has knowledge that is very, very difficult to replace. So, he's all over it.
Quite incredible, eh?
I'm grinning away. It was really nice to see. Thank you. And yeah, I mean the Stig thing. That was unfortunately the guy in second place
Yeah.
was a chap called Chris Rosenberger, who to people that know, he's done an awful lot of rallying, and he's done more rallying than anyone I know in the last couple of years. But Chris, first time in a Porsche, first time in one of our cars, did 15 kilometers of testing, and the only stage he set fastest time on was the first stage the following morning. And he
Yeah,
blitzed everybody.
119, I think he took out a Stig, which is incredible.
Well, Stig was baffled, and so baffled that he left that stage finish, and he rolled the car on the road section. But between the penultimate and the last stage, it wasn't a big roll, but it smashed the screen, went fully over, and then he finished second. But a couple of days earlier, Stig gave Chris a couple of minutes, so he wasn't running on the road. And I said to the guys in my team, he can't afford to have done that. That was a mistake. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how old Stig was then, but it was just last safari he did with us, but an extraordinary man again. And that was the first time he'd been to Kenya without Bjorn in his career.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, his mantra was always, "I'll take what Bjorn's got."
But he never went to Kenya as a factory driver. Bjorn was always there, and even during testing pre-rally, he just said, "Look, whatever Bjorn has, I'll have."
Mm-hmm.
They were quite a pair.
Incredible. Yeah, so Stig was our teammate in 2003 when I was with Martin in the city car.
So I've forgotten that with David Sutton.
Yeah, with Anagoni, and I think he was 57 back then, and we struggled like hell in some rallies to beat him. Like really, just incredible. But I've told the story many times. At the end of the recce, I'd go straight to the bar with him, buy him a couple of beers, and just sit and listen. When I should have been tidying notes and things like that, but it was too good an opportunity just to listen to those stories. Were just incredible.
You did have to give him a few beers before you start talking, but I think definitely in the last 5 years, he's talking a bit more than he ever used to. But when I first met him, bloody hell, he would never say anything.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. So Safari then is just incredible. The numbers that are involved in that now, the team that you've got there. How many cars do you have this time? 16, 17, was it?
No, the biggest year was 17.
17, I remember.
Which was a perfect storm. And obviously suicidal. If I got that wrong, if I got that wrong, well, we would have been sunk really, because it was a stupid thing to do. But actually, it was the most planned we ever were. I mean, it was like clockwork, and everyone had a great time. And so this year just gone, we had 13. We lost a few because the date changed and we couldn't. Yeah. In fact, we won some and lost some. But I suspect, what are we now? We're 22, so that means we're 23, year and a half, let's say. It'll be our biggest entry ever. I guarantee we'll be bigger than 17. And So I bet, yeah, we've got some work to do. In fact, we need to start now. The cars haven't got back; they're getting back this week. But I suspect we had this extraordinary cocktail of amazing clients. They're all amazing, but this year was more amazing because we hadn't been anywhere for years because of COVID.
Of course.
5 of them had never done a rally.
I know that's the maddest thing ever. I
But
just can't get my head around that.
But it is and it isn't. And I have a real thing about the barrier of entry to motorsport, and it particularly rallying, because racing, I get it. You're going to ruin someone else's day if you make a mistake. Rallying, you know, largely speaking, if you seed it correctly, you can't upset anyone. So the other thing is, if I take, and by the way, we take it extremely seriously. So you know Ryan very, very well, but between Ryan, myself, Martin, Terry Cabey, David Mazam, a whole load of great drivers, we take them through probably 2 or 3 days in Sweden at our ice driving, then a couple of days at Walters, a couple of days at Sweetland, and then of course by the time you've done 9 days in Kenya, well, you've done more rallying than
Yeah, of course.
3 years in the UK.
Yeah.
And if you paired with, you know, for example, nice guy, Raymond Voss, Stefan Prebo is my number 1 co-driver, apart from Ryan. Obviously, he's but if I want a co-driver, and Ryan's a driver who co-drives,
Yeah.
then Stefan's the go-to. And actually, before Stefan, a guy called Didier Breton. Do you remember him? Frederick Dawes
Yeah, of
co-driver.
course. Yeah.
Coolest customer in the world, just smoked, just like Stefan. All rally, nothing was a drama.
Uh-huh.
But Raymond Voss came along and put someone like Stefan with him. The education they're gonna have over these 9 days is amazing. And the other thing to remember about Africa is, yes, it's tough. There are a whole load of complications, road, weather, all of that stuff. But actually, the road in some ways is okay by comparison to a wet Welsh stage, where you've got crests and cambers and all sorts of bloody other stuff to trip you up. So I don't think it's irresponsible, firstly. And secondly, we give them a hell of a lot of training. But it does frustrate me to how difficult it is to get new people into motorsport. I don't think it's necessary. And there should be fast track scenarios where you can go and do very concentrated courses and get people in quicker. That's my view. I think it would help the sport enormously.
Yeah, the other thing I think, Richard, is, you know, this conversation I've had with David Lapworth, who is very keen to have people have easier entry into motorsport. So if you take a road car, you know, a Type R Civic or something like that, it's a very safe car. What's stopping people to go and do a hill climb in that car without roll bars and things like that? That's a fundamental thing for me. You know, why can't that happen?
No, we could have a whole separate conversation where we moan like hell about those that control our sport, but let's not go there.
No, definitely not. You were talking about drivers being co-drivers. I remember you co-drove Mr. Rowe. He asked me to do the Trans-Siberian Rally in a Porsche Cayenne, like standard cars. And I wasn't able to do it because of my nephew's wedding, so he took you instead. It was just that was a hell of an adventure as well.
Yeah, Martin's Martin, and you know we'd worked together for a long time in Norway, and he's a really good mate. And I mean, it was an absolute bloody disaster in the end. But the week build up, we had an extraordinary time. The testing, even when we went testing in Germany, our car didn't work, and you know what, like Martin's like, if there's nothing to do, you can usually find something to do. So we had some fun along the way, and then we got to Moscow, and the car wasn't there, so we wandered around Moscow for a few days, thinking, well, this isn't going to work. It arrived the day before the rally. Stage 1, which was supposed to be an easy stage, it was halfway through. Bloody Armin Schwartz and his mate were coming flat out towards us in the wrong direction. I had the axe out. I was up to my bloody neck in mud, shit, trees. You did very, very well to miss out on that. You couldn't get fuel. It's the only country I've been. You can't even order a Coca-Cola in Russia.
Yeah.
And we spent 7 very long days. The one benefit was we had a Porsche Gold card, and after the first couple of days, we worked out that a load of people were staying in different hotels. So we chummied up with the Americans, and we basically said, look, wherever you stay, tell us. And so we got out the Gold card and we started to stay in some better accommodation. But but it all went to nothing. And funny enough, Martin last night, 2 nights ago, sent me the picture. I don't know whether you've got it, but it's almost worth me WhatsApping it to you now and you putting it on. But this car caught fire, and there was me, Martin, and a bloke on a horse, and a burning Cayenne. At the same time, and you've got to watch our safari video, our documentary, because we're wearing these fog glasses, which were luminous glasses made out of sweet tubes, and we were wearing them whilst trying to put this fire out. So that was the end of that, but it was a good trip. And yet again, I realised why drivers should not be co-drivers. So, stupid thing to do. I will never do it again.
You mentioned a couple of times about Mr. Champion, and I don't know if you remember the reintroduction night when I brought them to the pub to Deddington Arms. Do you remember that? Yeah. So we were doing an event. We were doing a launch at Silverstone, and I was coming across to see Angus Watt, my very good friend. And I'd actually lived in Deddington between 97 and 2000. So when I moved from Ireland to go co-driving professionally, that's where I stayed. And I was heading back for a beer, and Ryan Champion and Justin Dale were working alongside me. I said, come for the crack and we'll have some dinner and have a couple of beers. So off we went, and that's the night you walked in. And is that a reacquaintance? I don't know, many. It must be 10 years ago now, is it? Probably more.
I lived there for 12 years, and Martin lived there. Martin lived in Deddington for a bit.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you must have lived with Angus and Colin Clark and all those boys. Ed Bentley that period of time?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, that's
maybe. But no, Deddington's a great place. We moved here back to home, as it were. I don't know, 7, 8 years ago, which is wonderful for other reasons. But Deddington's a really special place. But no, there's Ryan and I work very, very closely. He's an amazing bloke, great driver, a great instructor, a brilliant ambassador for rallying. And I just love the fact that so many people still have such passion for rallying. And he's one of them. He's right up there.
Absolutely. And of course, the below zero side of things has just grown from strength to strength over the years.
Yeah, well, that's again a typical sort of me idea. When I did that, the Swedish rally in a Group N car, Andreas Mikkelson's dad, Steiner, who was a client of ours, he had a 27 RS rally car, actual 27 RS rally car, because that was when the FIA said you had to have real ones, and he had a 2-litre short wheelbase car. So he said, look, if you're gonna do this, A, I'll give you a little bit of help, and B, why don't you come down to Yalo and drive my 911? So I did a couple of days with him, stayed with him for New Year, and then I went to Sweden. And when I came back from America and got involved by mistake, I might add, here in 2002, I came to help Dad for the 2003 Safari Rally, just for one rally. I was developing property and restoring houses. I remembered my experience in Sweden, where I learned more about driving in 3 days than any other rally or rallying I'd ever done. So I went out there the next year to the same lake, and I took 3 cars and I had 5 clients, and then Desi Nut being one of them. And then the next year, they must have told a few people. And before I knew what was one, it was about 2008, sort of financial crisis type time, where I must have picked up the phone to a few people a bit more than 3 weeks before or whatever. And suddenly we had 100 people. Oh, shit, this could be a thing.
Yeah. And
eventually I said to a guy called Tim Scarf, come and get on with it. And it's become a great thing. So we typically do sort of 2.5 months, 8 cars every day. And Ryan's our lead instructor, amongst other things. And it remains, I think we're 16 years in or whatever, 14, 15, 16, I don't know. It remains still one of the best driving experiences you can ever have. And it also is the only place to understand a car safely. You can do things there that you can't anywhere else. And but forget all that. It's just unbelievably good fun. And we're in the biggest ski resort in Scandinavia now, so nice restaurants, pubs, all that stuff.
Very much so, and you get like a Carlos Sainz and Carlos Sainz Jr. and people like that.
That was bloody funny. They literally got out of their rental car with stopwatches, both of them.
Yeah.
And you can imagine trying to. I think think whether it was Ryan or Martin.
Martin was with Carlos since
Martin was
junior.
there.
Yeah, he
And
was with
you
junior.
try and get junior away from senior. I mean, it's impossible. So we're trying to teach him stuff. You might as well give up. Anyway, they had an amazing day, and actually, Carlos, that was an amazing evening, where he had a couple of bottles of red wine, or we all did. I think Chris Harris was with us for some reason, and he started telling stories, which was a really special evening. And obviously, yeah, the young ones turned out all right. He got a good drive with a red car in the end. So must have been Martin. I think it's mostly thanks to Martin.
Absolutely. Well, Martin was he was delighted that he won the tussle, clearly, because he did listen to Martin eventually. But
Not many people do.
I know. So you mentioned Chris Harris there, and of course you're best buddies from university days, aren't you?
Yeah, we were at uni together. We played hockey. He's my.
You played hockey. I didn't know you were a hockeyist.
Yeah, well, I was socially inept, as I think we've semi-discussed. And I went to uni, having not been at school for years. I was semi-mature student, but not really, just on the cusp. And I played hockey. I met my wife in the third term of uni, and Chris was a budding journalist. He probably had a 106. I was driving around in some duffed up Mark II Golf. In fact, we smashed the window on that several occasions during uni years. But Chris was a car guy, so he was sort of interested in what I got up to. I was driving the Nova, and then he used to work for Autocar in the holidays making tea.
Really?
Now he's gone on to be the short one on the telly. So he's it's worked out. He's a I have to say this quite quietly. He's a bloody good driver.
Yeah.
In fact, that was the other time I co-drove. That was another stupid mistake. I co-drove for him in the Fiesta R2 with M Sport when they first came out.
Yeah, that's a while ago.
I'm going to say that was another debut class win with him. And the funniest story was, well, firstly, I didn't know the regulations. There was things like red flags and all sorts of stuff that I think Malcolm had to get us out of a spot of bother one night. But the best thing was in the middle of some stage, we couldn't be bothered to do a recce. So we used Matthew's notes.
Yeah.
And we used Matthew's notes, and we got into a world of trouble somewhere. Actually, on the way out of Walters Arena, whatever that stage would have been called, because a can of Vimto got stuck in the pedal box. But certainly after day one, I was the wrong man for the job as ever, and yet again realised why a driver should never be co-driving, because I was just terrified. And but he's a good driver. Don't tell him.
Yeah, I think he is. And you just watch some of the in-car stuff, and you can tell he's got the general idea. And of course, Roger Albert Clark, who's doing decent times in that. If you looked at them.
Yeah, he was all right. I went a couple of days before with him, and I haven't driven any Escorts, and many. I've driven one or two, but that was my first proper go on gravel in his. I don't know what it is, Vauxhall engine sequential thing. Anyway, the only thing I helped with the brake bias was all wrong, so he got that fixed, and he actually had a good run in the end.
Yeah.
Plus a night in the car, of course.
He did. He slept. And the hotel lady, we heard all those stories as well, in just outside Carlisle somewhere, wasn't it? Yeah.
Amazing,
brilliant.
yeah.
But that's the sport, that's the nature of it and why we love it so much. Just conscious of time, there's a couple of things I want to do. I just want to have another look at the workshop. And again, if I can tee this up properly, it's a video that was, I think you saw off your YouTube channel, from Seen Through Glass. If you want to just tee that up for me, then I can get it done here, if you can remember what we're talking about. So it's, one of the journalists came... He came for a car that I think it might have been actually Mr. Harris had pointed him in the right direction to pick up a car.
He went on collecting cars a couple of weeks later, so it was a sort of pre-auction video that he was doing.
Right, okay.
And we went for a drive.
Yeah, so we'll pick it up just like a minute and 30 into it, if I can do this. Just a quick look at the workshop.
Come in, come in. So, lots of Porsches of various different sorts. So you're going to find race cars, rally cars, road cars, and everything in between. Probably the best thing to say. Let's have a little wander. Safari car in build, brand new. Colour scheme you may or may not recognise. So that's a lovely thing. Beautiful road car, very, very near to completion. Special engine, 3.6 litre, lovely dampers, good brakes, light chassis, great thing. Broadly speaking, this side of the building is competition work. The other side of the building is regular road servicing. So we have 993 Turbo, we have a Carrera 3, an SC Targa, 997 GT3, a beautiful Singer Classic, and rather cool 910. You might recognise this one, your good friend Philip. I think last time you probably saw that was in a bunker, perhaps, Monterey. So that's alive and well after its safari exploits and is being rebuilt, ready for another outing. And very quickly I want to show you the engine shop, which is one of my favourite areas. A nice 2-litre cup engine, just finishing a new build here, which is 2-litre Solix carburetors, circa 205 horsepower, wonderful thing. We have a Safari engine somewhere over there. Sorry, making you move around. Base 3-litre SC engine, PMO carburetors, 280, 300 horsepower. Fairly low compression, you can get away with poor fuel quality that we might find in Africa. What have we got over here? Another 2-litre cup car, 904, Phillips car again, Belgium tarmac championship winning Almeras bodied car, which I love. And I think we ought to have a bit of a close look at this one, which is a good way to introduce you to classic Porsches.
Oh, I'm already loving this. Like, it's really bad, I know, but like, I'm so carried away. Also, because you know the spec of this car is very similar to my mod.
There you go.
Nice glasses.
I know. Where did they come from?
It came from a shop in Sicily with my daughter. In fact, I've had them repaired. At that point, they had Costa coffee sticks keeping them on, but anyway, I've got some new ones now.
Yeah, they're looking a lot better, I think. A little bit more richer, those ones.
Yes, it was it's a long time ago, but it's extraordinary to see all the cars. And they like every single day is the same. There's just bloody hundreds of them.
Just amazing, isn't it? Somebody wants to know where the Beetle ended up.
My Beetle. So from me, it went to someone else. They rolled it a lot. What the bloody hell happened then? I honestly don't know. That's terrible, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It probably it might be another McRae legacy story. It might have just scrapped it. I can't remember.
There's a story about Prodrive as well. The special Subarus that you had a part in.
They call them McRae specials.
Yes.
Every single one built by me. Every
Yep.
single one. I sort of thought it was a semi-compliment, but actually on reflection, I think they just needed to get rid of me. And I had to work in a warehouse on my own in Gaydon. And I single-handedly, I think we had dampers, wheels, and of course the plaque, single-handedly put them on. But it was a doddle of a thing. I used to make myself a big sandwich, go down there, have a really proper good sleep during lunchtime, literally asleep in the store shed, and then smash a few wheels on. But I thought it was a compliment, but on reflection, they definitely were trying to get rid of me. I made them all.
Didn't think so, but
Yeah.
those special cars built by Richard Tuttle before he
There we
started to
go.
build other special cars. Great. There's one special car I can't let you go without talking about because we learnt about this just over a year ago, probably about close to 18 months ago, and it's gone off radar. And I'm just wondering where this special machine is, and I want to find out a little bit more about it, if you don't mind. So,
You can see it from here.
hey, let's have a look at this. So Walters Arena's finest bit of steering there. So that is the Singer All-Terrain Competition study. So what studying has been going on? I haven't heard that much about it lately.
Well, it's probably legal most likely.
If we give us a 2-minute backstory, just so people who haven't seen it, I doubt anybody who's watching this hasn't seen that before, but
So there's an extraordinary company based in LA called Singer Vehicle Design. I've worked with them for a couple of years and still assist them with certain projects now. Amazing bunch, and they've redefined quality and visually how you look at an old 911. And they had an extraordinary client, perhaps one of the most extraordinary blokes I've ever met. And he commissioned a car, so he dropped off a couple of 911s unannounced to them and said, "Can you make me a rally car?" They said, "We don't know how to, but we know a guy." I got introduced to them thanks to Chris.
Yep.
And set about a project which began as a couple of dampers and maybe a set of brakes. Then it evolved. In the end, we produced, I'm going to say, one of the most extraordinary rally cars that, honestly, I think the world's ever seen. It's such a thing. Look, we've all seen amazing rally cars, and the current crop of hybrid WRC cars are extraordinary. But that thing is from another planet. It's extraordinary, and the creative genius behind it. Visually, it's from Singer. Mechanically, we were given a blank sheet of paper. So if you imagine sitting to me and you've heard my story, and then some guy says, "Build whatever you can, the best you can," and that's that. And I just consider myself the most fortunate bloke in the world to have had a go at that. And it's, I talk about good ideas, talk about everything, even if I, in my wildest dreams, could never dream that lot up on my own. And so, yeah, an amazing thing. And funny enough, it reminds me that the video, I was as white. And pretty much the day I got out of that car at Walters Arena, I didn't work for another 3 months with COVID. So I was in real trouble. I think I was already had COVID. I looked like I was dead, but we've been working very, very hard. So I'm very glad we did. And that video, that you were just going onto the beach there, and we hired the beach for 100 quid from the local council in Abu Dhabi, near Mahanthas, where we all know. And I've been going to that beach. My dad's been going to that beach since he was 7 years old every year. So very, very special.
Yeah, it's special and well captured as well in the video.
Beautifully shot. Actually, yeah, some great guys. And Colin McMaster took a load of photos of Walters that night. But no, sadly, Porsche didn't want any more to be produced. I honestly, my take on it is it was just too good, and they're producing some off-road, some themed off-road cars in the future, and there's a lot of chat. But I'm very, very confident it'll have another life. It's not the last. There's two of them, and you'll see them again soon.
Excellent. That's good to hear.
I promise. In some form, they'll be back.
Definitely good fun to be in something like that. It's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this show, over the last couple of years, we've had some absolute rally legends from the Irish rally scene, but we mentioned one earlier, Desi Nut, who has a long and strong association. He sadly we lost Desi quite recently, but his driving career and also going along on safari, he was certainly a special customer and then friend, of course, and partner Tuttle's, really.
Absolutely. We don't support many drivers, but I remember, so we built the car originally back in the day where we didn't really run cars. You just built cars, they went away. And then after, I don't know, how many 100 rallies, Desi needed his car rebuilding. And of course, we've been in touch and been helping him. Elkin Robinson had been looking after things, and just a brilliant bunch of people over there had been involved in the car. And it came back for a bare shell rebuild. And I really wanted to keep in with the British scene, and we were running on the back of getting Desi involved. We started to run cars again in the UK, and so yeah, we supported him a little bit, and at our prime, we were probably running 7-8 cars per British Championship round. Desi being the lead driver, always he was in Category 1. We did build him a black 27 RS as well, which he did Silver Fern in, but he's most well known for his yellow 911, which is actually a very rare right-hand drive car. And we had enormous success, but it's all irrelevant actually, because the best thing about Desi, whether he was driving a car as a client, friend, whether he was team doctor on the Safari Rally, which he was 4 or 5 times probably, was his company, and the Irish are just extraordinary. You can tell stories, you can tell jokes, you can drink beer, whiskey, whatever it is. You can do everything better than anyone else, and Desi was the king of that. So to have spent so many years with him, and actually his son Michael came on the event one year and ended up co-driving, which was, I mean, I spoke to Michael sadly when his dad died, but God, that was an experience. But just to hang out with Desi, and the world was better with Desi in it, and rallying. He was historic rallying, in my opinion. He was a brilliant man, drove wonderfully, loved his rallying, and the way he went about it was very, very special. And I'm very, very thankful that we had the memories and the time we had with him. Extraordinary man.
Here, definitely. So, future-wise, then, Richard, are you keeping abreast of what Porsche are doing with synthetic fuels?
Yeah, yes. Funny enough, we're running some cars at Classic Le Mans with some. Are they synthetic? They're friendly fuels. So we're doing
almost carbon neutral. Let's call it.
Yeah. So we're doing something, and on the carbon neutral thing, actually. So we're a recycling business. We take old stuff which has long since been absorbed, but and I think I'm becoming, because my kids are of a certain age, I'm becoming more and more aware of what we do, and we're going to be starting something soon on that front, so that we can continue to do good stuff. But I think driving cars like this and anything that isn't, I'm not going to say electric, but maybe electric, hybrid, synthetic fuels, it's going to become all about driving experiences, I think, because I don't think we'll be able to drive as we always have done. And so we're quite well placed to work on that. We understand the experiences, we do many already. So we're looking forward to that. And I think inevitably, I really, really hope that we do find a product that we can put in these cars that is sustainable and going to do, allow us to continue. But I think we're going to be into experiences, and they'll be competitive and non-competitive. So we're working very, very hard on a whole new range of things to entertain us and all our lovely customers. So I'm hoping to announce some cool stuff in the next 6 months.
Excellent. That sounds wonderful. Looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to coming for a visit. It's been far too long. I'm due up your way in the next few weeks, so I'll have to get a date in the diary if you're about to come and have a look around.
You're welcome anytime. It'd be nice to see you.
Yeah, it'll be great. Richard, thanks very much for all your time. Anything else that you want to mention before we finish?
No, I mean, probably only scratch the surface, but thank you very, very much for having me. It's very nice to chat to you again, and it's funny what we remember. I mean, I've completely forgotten the Seat thing. I have got a terrible memory, but it's lovely, and I think we're all so lucky to be involved in rallying. And yes, we're involved heavily in racing now, and hopefully no one who likes racing is watching this. But rally people are different, and we've managed to bring a bit of rally atmosphere to the race paddock, and I'm very proud of it. We're doing really, really well. And these cars go sideways like rally cars, so it's all good. But no, thank you very, very much, Trevor. It's really amazing to chat to you, and thank you for having me.
Thanks for all your time, Richard. If you stay where you are, we'll have a quick chat in a second. But folks, that's it for tonight. We'll have another one of these coming up soon. It's just always very difficult at the minute to try and fit it in around work. But I hope you enjoyed tonight's, and we'll try and get something else put together soon.